The Honda CR-V is a fairly capable ride. And in this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the CR-V. Pricing for the CR-V in Canada starts at around $37,800 versus $31,400 down in the US. With the overall price depending on the drivetrain that you go for, the color choice, and how you build your vehicle out. Are you in the gas engine or the available hybrid, and which trim level? So there are 4 primary trims in Canada with 6 different options in the States. This one is in the Platinum White Pearl, which is a color choice I normally wouldn't go for. Inside of the CR-V, you're going to find either 17, 18, or 19-inch wheels, depending on which trim level that you've gone for. This one has 19-inch wheels, and they're blacked out, and that look is solid. I'm a big fan of black wheels, and like I was saying, with this paint choice, the two of them just go together very nicely. Looking at the drivetrain inside of the CR-V, in Canada, we've only got one trim level, that's front-wheel drive, versus down in the US, every trim level is available front-wheel drive, with the option of upgrading to an intelligent all-wheel drive system instead. In Canada, our hybrids are only going to be available all-wheel drive. You're going to find LED headlamps inside of the CR-V, which look pretty solid at night. And following that black highlight, the grille, beautiful glossy black with the Honda badge in the very middle. Technology-wise, there's the option for the forward sensing system, but no front-facing camera. So there's no 360 cam option in any trim level of the CR-V. And that's one thing that I think that Honda should absolutely incorporate into this ride, because if it's going up against things like the Ford Escape or even the Kia Sportage, those all have great available technology, including a 360 cam. Underneath the hood of the CR-V, there are 2 different engine choices that are available. The default is a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine, which pushes out 190 horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty respectable. But then you've got this, the 2-liter hybrid engine. And power-wise, inside of the hybrid, combined horsepower and torque, when you look at the 2-liter engine with the electric motor, 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty respectable. So I just dropped myself into sport mode. Let's get back up to highway speed in 3, 2, and... $100. All right. That's pretty respectable. Like for a little crossover. I think that's going to be pretty solid for most people. So if power is your thing, you're going to want to go for that 2-liter hybrid instead. But if you don't care about the fuel economy and the savings that you get, the 1.5-liter is still a pretty good option. Underneath the hood here, you can easily top up your wiper fluid, change your oil, and then there's also access to that smaller battery along the right-hand side. The CR-V hybrid is traditional, so there's no plug-in version available yet. I'd love to see that. But what that means is that as you go to drive, the motor is going to charge up the battery. You can actually see the power flow inside of the infotainment as well as the cluster screen. And then as you go to brake, it's going to use regenerative braking in order to capture some of that charge, in order to charge that battery up as well. Looking at the warranty inside of the Honda world, it's pretty industry standard. So your basic is a 3-year, 36,000 mile, 60,000 kilometer. Powertrain gets bumped up to 5 years, 60,000 mile, 100,000 kilometer. And then all of the hybrid EV components are covered for 8 years, 100,000 mile, 160,000 K. But just do yourself a favor and take care of your ride. So regularly scheduled maintenance and at least regular oil changes. Honda vehicles are known for lasting 3, 4, 500,000 miles plus, but you do have to take care of it if you want this ride to treat you right. You're going to find LED tail lamps inside of the CR-V with the blinker setup looking pretty good. There's a dual tip exhaust, and then technology-wise, you're going to find the rear park sensing system, a backup camera, and the rear wiper. You do also have the flexibility of towing inside of the CR-V. The regular 1.5-liter turbocharged engine maxes out at 1,500 pound towing capacity, while the hybrid maxes out at 1,000 pounds. So it's not a ton that you can tow, but a small trailer, bike rack carrier, things like that, you'd be covered off here. Getting into the trunk of the CR-V can be done a few different ways. There's a button just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. You can use the Keyfob to do it. Just underneath the Honda badge in the back, there's a button there that you can push. And then there's also the option for a hands-free liftgate in some trims. And in order to use it, all you're going to do is swipe your foot underneath. As long as you've got the key fob on you, up it goes. I love that feature, but there's only one downside to the foot-activated liftgates, is that if the sensors are covered in snow or dirt, mud, whatever the case may be, they won't work. But I mean, as you saw there are a ton of different ways to get inside of the trunk of this ride. Off to the right side, there's a little light and a woofer. The setup back there is going to depend on the trim level that you're in. And then along the left side, there's a 12-volt power point along with a light. This one has the little thermoplastic rubber tray you're going to find from the factory. And these little guys are so useful. If you get muddy things back here, snow, whatever the case may be, it's so easy to just take this out and spray it down. Then one thing you're not going to find inside of the hybrid is going to be a mini spare tire. But it does have an inflator kit. So along the left-hand side, there's a little cover that you can remove. And that's going to show you the little white spigot along with the little inflator kit. You could always get a spare and then a jack stand yourself if you wanted to, but one of the nice things about being a Honda owner is that you have access to roadside assistance. So if you ever pop a tire, puncture a tire, if you need towing services to a Honda dealership, if you've locked yourself out, you need fuel delivery, so many things, even trip interruption, you have that coverage through Honda, and that's good for 3 years, 36,000 mile, or 60,000 kilometers. It's just one of the added benefits of being a Honda owner. And then, folding down the second row seats inside of the ride can be done from the trunk if you can reach it, because the seats can actually be reclined. So when you go to push down, you really got to kind of push yourself into the trunk in order to fold them down back here. But you can fold down the left or the right sides independently. And if you don't need to get into the trunk, not a big deal, because you can easily fold them down from the second row instead. And there's a great amount of cargo space inside of this ride. The measurements that you're looking at, specifically behind the first row seats, are going from right where the liftgate would close to just in behind that little armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat in the first row, or back a little bit, or forwards, you gain or lose a little bit of extra space. And while it's not a completely flat fold for the trunk, it's still pretty solid amount of space back here. When you go to lift the seat up, it's actually kind of interesting. Since the seat can be reclined, when you go to lift it up, it's going to stop part way. So you just have to grab the little tab along the top in order to push it back into your ideal position. And then another cool thing is that the trunk here, so the liftgate, is actually as high up as it's going to go. You can manually lower or raise it. And there's a button on the outside here that you can push and hold if you wanted to set it at a lower height. Filling up fuel inside of the CR-V is done along the driver's side. And one nice thing, when the door is locked, the fuel door is also locked. So you just have to unlock in order to get inside. And it's got anti-siphon technology built in. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation inside of the CR-V is just regular 87 octane. So regular gas is all you need to use inside of this ride, regardless of the engine that you look at. So the question of, is the hybrid even worth it, is going to depend on you. The hybrid version of the CR-V is more expensive than the regular gas version. You're also going to be able to save more fuel though in comparison. So if you can save 20% of your fuel costs per year, it could pay for itself in a couple years of ownership. So whether or not you decide to go for the hybrid is going to depend on if you've got the budget for the more expensive version of the vehicle, and also if you're okay with saving fuel and getting more power. But that's a question you have to answer for yourself. If you're the type of person that's adventurous, you do have the option for crossbars. So if you wanted to throw in some roof rack rails or a carrier on top, you've got that flexibility. Getting inside the vehicle is straightforward, and there's a boatload of space. But I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, more than easily get into the first row. And the second row is equally as easy. And you're going to find assist handles inside of the first and second row across all four doors. The Honda CR-V has the option for side view mirrors with LED turn signals. There's a blind spot monitoring system, so that's going to highlight if somebody enters the blind spot on either side. There's intelligent access, so as long as you've got the fob on you, you can push there to lock, slide your hands in, in order to unlock. And along the door, you've got this little highlight that follows through parts of the dash. There's the option for driver seat memory in some trims, and then the buttons here are going to be the same across the board. So controls for your side view mirrors, your window controls with some storage. You can open the trunk, turn off traction control, and then your front defroster. It's a manual telescoping steering wheel across the whole vehicle lineup. And then these are the thermoplastic rubber trays you're going to find from the factory. And honestly, I recommend getting the trays because it's so much easier to clean them off. There are a few different types of seating material you're going to find inside of the CR-V with power adjustable seats, so forwards, backwards, up and down, adjust your backrest, and multi-way lumbar support. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Honda CR-V. In this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the steering wheel and the cluster. The first thing is that the steering wheel may be heated inside of your ride, and you can turn that on or off along the very bottom of the wheel. It's also going to be manual telescoping. So by your left knee, there's a release. You're going to go in, out, up and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you do, click it in order to lock it back into place. And then, so many different options for the buttons and stocks. So you've got your lighting options along the left-hand side. So you can adjust what light mode that you're in. So you can toggle your lights off, go into an auto mode, or your headlamp mode as well. There is the option for auto high beams inside of the infotainment system when you get into your vehicle settings. So you've got vehicle settings for lighting with auto high beam. And what that one means is that if the vehicle recognizes your high beams are necessary, it'll turn them on automatically. If there's somebody oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. It's actually a really, really neat system, the way that it works. From here, you could toggle your lamps off, but honestly, I recommend just keeping yourself in the auto mode the majority of the time. You can still lock your high beams up by pushing away, flash them out as necessary. Stick along the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. So you've got your just basic mist mode along the top. You can drop down one level and then also use the rocker here to say how fast or slow that auto level is going to be. And then you've got some of those hyper crazy modes. You can pull in towards you to get the wiper fluid going as well for the front. And then you've got a series of different options for the rear. So a few different intermittent levels you could push down in order to get your wiper fluid going for the rear as well. And then up this way as well. Straightforward to use it. And you've got paddle shifters inside of the rides. You've got your minus on the left-hand side with your plus on the right-hand side. So if you needed to kind of drop gears in order to be able to launch yourself forward, so it essentially hugs onto the RPM a little bit more, you're going to drop down this way and then increase gears as necessary. So rely on engine braking or increase your RPM in order to blast in front of cars. You've got that flexibility. But if you want to walk through on how to actually use paddle shifters, check down in the description of this video, but it is really straightforward to do. Now, a few other things to point out. You've got along the right-hand side here, your adaptive cruise control setup. So you could toggle the system on this way, and then as you start to cruise, you push down to set your speed. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time, or push and hold up to get to the nearest 5 or 0. There is also a distance indicator. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I want you to think of that one almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for how far you are away from the car in front of you. I normally recommend level 1 for residential streets, and then level 2, maybe 3 on highways and interstates, depending on your own personal comfort level. And then if you push and hold the gap adjustment button for 1 to 2 seconds, that's also going to put you into a traditional cruise control instead. There's also going to be a lane keeping system too. So it's not full hands-free driving, but what this system will do is, as long as it recognizes the lane markings, it's going to go green. And that's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. So if you lose focus for a brief second, you're going around a bend, it can keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. You do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel though, because after a few seconds, you'll get a little message letting you know that you've got to put your hands back on the wheel. So steering is required. But if you want to see the option of the adaptive cruise system used in person, check down in the description of this video for a live demonstration. You've got a series of options along the left side too. So this is going to let you change between songs, stations. So essentially all of your different presets that are available. If you also were on, let's say other side like AM, FM, even technically SiriusXM, you could do it. You could also do a push and hold in order for it to act as a seek button instead. But honestly, your best way to change the audio, tune to 97.7 FM.
Tuning to 97.7.
It's just using your voice instead. So you've got that flexibility. You can set up presets easily as well. There's a volume rocker here. There's a volume rocker there if you wanted to adjust. And then you've got a few other buttons. So you've got your voice command prompt. And then there's also going to be the button here to navigate through that part of the cluster, which I'll touch on in a second. On this voice command prompt, if you had your phone connected, so either Android or iPhone devices, if you do a longer push and hold, that's going to activate either your Siri or your Google Assistant instead. A short button push would always be for the factory assistant. Long button push and hold is for your voice assistant on your phone. And then going into the cluster screen here, so one thing to point out is that this is the hybrid version of the vehicle. So you've got your power gauges along the left. If you were in the regular gas version, the layout would be fairly identical. It's just that you wouldn't have these charge gauges. So I want you to think of this gauge like a traditional tachometer to a degree. So as you put your foot down to drive, you'll notice that this goes up. So it's how much power are you using? So it's essentially your RPM gauge. As you go to brake, depending on your level of braking, it's going to go down and it'll be green. So it's essentially going to use regenerative braking in order to try to recharge the battery. So to recharge as you're driving, but as you go to brake, it's going to try to recapture that energy in order to charge the battery up. You've got your EV mode there, your current time, vehicle is good to go, your current fuel level, what gear you're in, so whether you're in park, reverse, neutral, drive, low gear, whatever the case may be. So that shows up and you heard the beeping there. And you've also got what different systems are enabled. So if your lane centering system was turned on, if your adaptive cruise control system was turned on, etc., you'd have all of those icons showing up. You've got your current speed along the outside there. If the driver was plugged in as well, you've got your current speed, and then just your basic ready to go, your lamp modes, whether your lamps are on, off, etc., on top of that. And then you've also got this little rocker switch, which is going to give you the flexibility of adjusting what's showing up inside of that left part of the cluster. So if we hop into the very top here, so the no content is exactly that. So it's essentially just a blank screen. You could also push and hold again if you wanted to change out to kilometers, miles per hour that way. So you just do a push and hold that way to do it. So it's a nice simple flip. You can hit the home icon here in order to adjust your screen brightness. So if you find it too dark, you can adjust it out this way. Hopping down into our gauge settings gives us a few basic options here as well. So you could show off what is showing up inside of that screen. So as we navigate through, so it's what information do you want there? Things that are grayed out, you can't remove. So those are always going to be there, but you can adjust out the other gauges. So as we hop back and we jump, there. So we've got all of our different options that are showing up here. Different warnings are available, so nothing as of right now, but if warnings were available, it would show up. Your power gauge, because this is the hybrid, so that looks kind of neat. So you can see that the gas engine is started up, and it's essentially taking that energy, transferring it to the battery in order to charge us up a little bit. You've got your fuel and range, so you can see right here, economy has been pretty good. You can push and hold OK here as well, so just push in order to reset your trip counter. Straightforward. And then you can also slide up and down to go to your either trip A versus your trip B counter. You can see your current speed and your elapsed time for A versus B counter on top of that. Audio. So if you wanted to, you could then, once you're on audio, move up and down in order to change between your different sources. But honestly, like I said, if you're just going for AM, FM, or SiriusXM, just using your voice to adjust things out that way, I think is way easier to do. From here, you've got options for your phone if it was connected. Navigation, if your vehicle had it in there, would also show up. So you've got your basic compass view, but when you've got a route going, you'd also get your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the screen there. You could swipe down. If you had a home address set up inside of the infotainment system, you could go home, you could look at saved places, recent destinations if you've gone to different spots. Basics for driver attention. So it's currently disabled, but if you had it enabled and you start to veer over too many times into another lane without signaling, eventually that counter is going to go up and it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. You could see which wheel is getting which amount of power. Since this is the all-wheel drive version, you've got your front and back wheel showing. If you were just front-wheel drive, those would be the only options showing up. Seatbelts, whether or not they're plugged in, so if it recognizes that there's weight on the seat, that would show up. Maintenance, so you've got your current oil life counter there. You can't reset it this way. That's done through the infotainment system. Safety, so you could also disable different safety options. So if you wanted to disable your road departure, so if you start to veer over into another lane without signaling and nudge you back into your lane, blind spot system, so if somebody enters your blind spot, you'll get a notification along your side view mirror. And then just your basic warnings here. So the beeping that you get as you back up. If you wanted to disable all of these systems, you do have the flexibility to do it. And then just no content, so you just want nothing showing up there instead. So again, if you kind of like that more minimalistic design, you've got that flexibility. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Honda CR-V. The CR-V technically has two different screen sizes that are available. So it's either going to be a smaller 7-inch screen or this 9-inch instead. And then even the 9-inch screen, there's two different variations, one with factory navigation and one without. But it doesn't matter which screen you're on because you can hook up either Android or iPhone devices to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze on iPhones, or Google Maps and Waze on Android devices right through the screen. And I'll show you that as we get into our smartphone connection. But in this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the infotainment system. So starting off, you've got a series of different buttons along the outside of the screen. You've got your home button that's going to pull you to this screen. There's a basic back button as well. So if you're on any of the screens, you can either push back or you can push home to get back to this home screen instead. So back essentially brings you back a page. Home is going to bring you back to the home screen. There's a little volume rocker here, so you can adjust your volume this way. You can also push in order to turn the audio off. So it's very straightforward doing that. From here, you can also do a little seek this way. You've got your audio sources along the very top, so you can choose between AM, FM, SiriusXM, if you had a USB stick with MP3s, if your phone was hooked up over Bluetooth, or if you had a Bluetooth iPod, whatever the case may be, or your smartphone. From there, you've also got whether your audio is toggled on off, if there was a device connected, your current connection level, time, and then along the bottom, there are a series of other options, so navigation, phone, etc., with different display options. Now, one thing is that you could also technically adjust the shortcuts out here. So you just do a push and hold there in order to be able to swap these out. So you can kind of customize them a little bit in order to make them your own. So on this screen, you can do a button push and hold there and drag around if you wanted to customize. And then just done to lock in your layout. So it's pretty straightforward there. And then swiping across gets you a boatload of options. So let's dive in and I'll show you everything as we go. Starting off with all apps, that's going to be the available apps on the device. You can also check off to say whether or not it shows up on the home screen. So you've got a little bit of flexibility there. Navigation. So you do have the option for factory navigation built in the higher trim levels of the vehicle. Outside of that, like I said, you can connect your phone, but using factory navigation is so straightforward. You do have pinch to zoom flexibility here. So just pinch to zoom in out this way, drag around. It is a little bit slower, but the next generation screen is based off of Google operating system, and it's got Google Maps built in. It's just so much nicer in comparison. You could change up your heading this way if you'd like to, zoom in or out this way. You can search for addresses here as well. You can search for point of interest icons. So you could search for different things. So if we look for nice and Canadian of me, Tim Hortons, and search. There we go. We've got all the different options available. So let's just pick one that's a bit further away. You can go, you can save it as a destination, or you can look at available routes. So if there were multiple ways that you could get to that end destination, it would give you different options available. And whichever route you then choose, you could hit go. And then you could hit the X in order to cancel out your search. You can hit the little search icon there if you wanted to search for other point of interest icons. So let's say if we wanted to fill up on gas. And we've got different options here. So let's just select one of these here. And we can go, save, or available routes. So what it's going to do is we can either add a new route or set it as a waypoint. So it's essentially a stop in between. Select either option, and then you've got the two options. So we're going to go to get gas and then Tim Hortons. If you wanted to flip it around, and if you had multiple addresses available there or multiple stops, you're essentially putting in a longer trip. You can then save your destinations. You can hit the X icon, and then it's going to fully route you out. And you're set to go. You could mute out notifications if you don't want them. You can also hit this option to avoid things. So on your map, do you want to show your traffic? You want to change out the color? Point of interest icons? Breadcrumb trail is kind of a neat one. So I want you to think of that one almost like a Hansel and Gretel type. So with that going, if you Let's go back and back. So as you start to drive, you'll start to notice little breadcrumbs around all of the places that you've been to. So it's very useful, especially if you're new to an area or if you're going off-road. So I think when we saw there, so breadcrumb recording, so off-road only. So if you're going off-road, then it's essentially going to let you know this is where you've been. It's actually pretty useful. You can delete your breadcrumb trails as well. For route options, you can detour. You can look at the full route overview. Route demo, nothing exciting there. Route preferences is where we want to go to avoid freeways, toll roads, ferries, trains, etc. So you could deselect any of these ones if you wanted to avoid them on your route. And back, traffic rerouting, nothing exciting there for these options. Guidance options, do you want to show your estimated arrival time or time remaining? So how much further do you have to go in order to get to your end destination? Do you want to automatically zoom in? So as you get closer to the end destination, zoom in or out as necessary. And turns and things like that. Voice guidance language. Do you want to be in either English, Spanish, or French? Basic tutorial, nothing exciting there. Manage places. You can add in a home address. And one of the big benefits there is that you could hit the voice command prompt and you'd be able to say navigate home. And if you have a home address saved, it'll navigate there. And then you could also, through the cluster screen, select up in order to go home or to different save places, recents, and things like that. So you're just moving through. So a big benefit there is just being able to say navigate home or do your different saved addresses, downloaded places, and things like that. Map updates. So if they were available, you could update over Wi-Fi at home. You could do a full map update over USB. So you'd essentially go to the Honda website in order to download that update if you'd like. You can adjust your vehicle positioning, reset everything to the default, look at software license, so nothing overly exciting there. But that's using factory navigation and then just canceling out the route, cancel. And then if you were to go search again, you could go home, go to your recents. So those are the addresses that we've searched for recently. You could hit more and then look at all of your different point of interest icons. But that's using factory navigation inside of the vehicle. Next up is going to be adding in a phone. So you can see there, no devices are connected. So all we're going to do is connect a new device, then search for devices. And we're just waiting, look at how quick that was, Honda CR-V to show up. It'll take a second. PIN numbers match up, so we're going to pair. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one, but I am fully connected here. So you could stop here if you wanted to. Your phone is connected for audio and for your phone. So you could just stop here and then you could make phone calls, listen to your audio stream that way if you'd like to. But you've also got the flexibility of setting up Apple CarPlay. And CarPlay inside of some of the screens is going to be wired. Other screens, it's going to be wireless. In the screens where it's wireless, like what we're looking at here, you do have the flexibility for backwards compatibility. So you could go over USB if you'd like to, but you want to make sure that the USB cable has a data transfer icon, because if it doesn't, it's just not going to work. But what we're going to do is just hit CarPlay and then connect. And it's working on connecting here. It'll take a second. So it's essentially just connected to our phone itself. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm waiting for. Use CarPlay with the CR-V. Yes, we want to use CarPlay. I'll take a second here. Oh, there we go, launching in, and we are fully connected. So you've got Apple CarPlay here, and you've got full screen. So on the screen itself, you've got your current time, connection level, battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. You can go to your basic home screen. You can swipe across to get to the icon views, and it actually is fairly responsive. This basic home screen is slightly customizable. You'll always have a map here, so it's whatever map application was open last. You'll always have your search bar, and then for media, so if you're listening to media. If you've got a calendar notification coming up today, that box would also show up. Otherwise, that's the basic layout you're looking at. Then you've got all of your icons. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that you can use through the device here. My favorite, my go-to is going to be Waze. And there are a few key reasons why. Like as you start to drive, you'll be able to mark things off on the map. So if there are cops that are pulling people over, if there's construction going on, if there are accidents, they'll be marked and things like that. So that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference, but I'm a big fan of using Waze. And you can mark things off on the map yourself. So if you're driving, you see that there are police pulling people over. If there are hazards, block lanes, and things like that, you can notify other drivers. You've got Google Maps available as an option here too, where you could search for route options. So if you wanted to change it out to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries, you could. You can adjust map colors and things like that. So there are different map applications that are available. Downside to CarPlay is that it doesn't support video playback as of yet. So you can't watch video through the screen. I'm like, it'd be nice to see, but it's not there, unfortunately. But you've got all sorts of different options. Like if you're a podcast listener, you've got that option there. Hoopla is a library app. Live One's a radio app. So there are different options. And then you can customize the layout a little bit. You can show driving focus. You've also got your basic appearance. There's a wallpaper option available, so you can kind of customize it a little bit and not fully make it your own, but you can customize it, which is nice. From here, there's a voice command prompt there, so you can do a short button push. And what that's going to do is launch into the assistant for the vehicle. So it's okay, but what you could also do is a long button push and hold instead. And that is going to activate your Siri Assistant instead. So if you're a bigger fan of using the Siri Assistant because you're hooked up over your phone, you've got that flexibility. So short button push is going to be for your factory one. Longer button push and hold will be for your Siri or your phone assistant instead. You could hit the home icon to get back home. You could launch back into CarPlay this way, back home again. And then if we go into our general settings, if you go into your smartphone connection, you've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. So we go to Apple CarPlay. We've got two phones that have been previously connected. What I want to do here is connect on my phone, and then I'm disconnecting from CarPlay. So I've essentially disconnected. But if I go back to my phone in the bottom, I could then go to my device list, and I've got my phone. So I'm just going to connect the phone there, and you can select different options here. So if you wanted to reconnect to CarPlay, or if you just wanted to use the phone for streaming audio, you've got that flexibility. But that's how you hook up iPhones inside of the Honda CR-V. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this screen, if you were back on the home screen, you're just hitting phone in either spots. We're just going to connect a new device. And then on your phone, you're just going to search for devices, and we're waiting for Honda CR-V to show up. Galaxy. There we go. Oh. Let's try that again. Connect device. And we'll go here. Happens sometimes. There we go. Pin numbers match up there, so we're just going to hit OK. And it'll take a second there. Look at that. Do we want to connect for audio for phone or for Android Auto? On the device when you connect, it's asking you, do you want to allow access to contacts and messages? It's not my car, so I'm again going to say no to that one. And you can stop here. If you wanted to just connect for your audio or for your phone, you could. But you can also connect for Android Auto and connect. And same idea. It is USB compatible inside of the options with wireless, but otherwise it's going to be a wired connection in the lower screen. So the 7-inch screen is going to be wired. The 9-inch screen is going to be wireless as well when you look at the option with factory nav. But we're going to enable Android Auto, and it'll take a second there. There we go. Takes a sec, and emergency contact services down. That's okay. And boom, we are fully connected. So you can see there, you've got your Android Auto set up. Slide along the side. You can swipe across. You've got your little icon view back to your main screen there. You've got the voice command prompt. You could also do a long push and hold on the steering wheel button in order to activate your command prompt that way instead. You've got the map icon that you can push, and that stretches you across into full screen. And one thing I do like about Android Auto is that it's full pinch to zoom capabilities, drag and drop there. You can search for addresses. You can hit here in order to show your 3D view, satellite view if you'd like to instead. You've also got a series of different route options, so avoiding highways, toll roads, ferries, etc. You could say whether or not you want notifications, do you want to get your north up view, etc. But that's using Google Maps. It's straightforward. And then if we hit the little icon on the bottom, that brings us back to our little split screen. And then from there, you'd also have the flexibility of hopping between different options here. So basic setup, back to your icon view. Now, if your Android device has Waze installed, but it's not showing up, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough explaining how to get Waze showing up in Android devices if it's not working. You've got the flexibility to be able to customize this layout a little bit as well. So what you're going to do on your phone, you're going to search for Android Auto. You're going to go to Android Auto settings. And then once you do, you've got a boatload of options, but you're looking for customized launcher. And very similar to the iPhone side of things, you can kind of do a drag and drop around if you wanted things to be in a different location, and then drag these things around. Anything with a check mark next to it, you could essentially deselect in order to remove it from the screen. But it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side of things. So in order for these changes to come into effect, what you need to do is hop back home. You're going to go into your phone. You're going to go into your settings, change device. From here, you've got the Galaxy that we've connected. You could deselect, so you're essentially disconnecting from Android Auto, and it's going to take a second there. So it's connecting to Bluetooth. And then once that goes away, we're going to hop back in. We're going to reconnect to Android Auto and apply. There we go. And we've reconnected and hopping back. So the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So it's that easy being able to set these things up. And then if you hop back to the home screen again, you're going to go back into general settings. So again, you can get to these things a few different ways. So smartphone connection, you've got Android Auto, and we've got the Galaxy that's been connected. So you can disconnect from Android Auto if you'd like to, or go into your phone, settings, change devices, and then you've got both phones. And one cool thing is that you can do a mix and match. So let's say if you wanted one phone connected for your phone calls, you could do it. And then let's say if you wanted the other phone, there we go, connected for audio. You could do that. So you could kind of do a neat little mix and match. So you can either be hooked up to either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both, but you can do a little mix and match otherwise. But it's straightforward being able to set these up. You could then hit options here, Bluetooth in order to turn off Bluetooth completely, priority device. So if you've got multiple phones connected, it's who's going to get connection priority. So who is the vehicle going to attempt to connect to first if you've got multiple people? You can connect into the phone in order to change between all of these different options. You can hit options here to delete the device as well. So we hit delete, and it's deleted that first device, delete, and we're going to connect through and delete, and there we go. And we've deleted both phones from the vehicle. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the Honda CR-V. From here, you've got FM available. And that's just going to be for your audio. So you've got your audio sources along the top that you can change between. So FM, AM, SiriusXM, USB, etc. Hopping back, you've got all of your different presets. So if you wanted to be able to save a preset in, what you're going to do is you can tune to a station a few different ways. So you can tune this way manually if you'd like to. You can see different station lists that are available. So if you're new to an area, you could take a look and see all the different stations that are available. Some stations broadcast digitally. That's where the HD comes into play. So you're just going to be able to get more stations that way. You could tune to a station this way instead. And to save it, just going to push and hold. And that resets and overwrites. And you can do that for any station. So if you've got a series of different stations, you're just going to do a button push and hold. You can seek out stations this way. Tune, you can scan as well. Look at your station list. If we hop into our audio sources, go to SiriusXM for a second, you've got all of your different SiriusXM presets too. You could fast forward into the song. You can hit settings there in order to look for some basic SiriusXM settings. And back. If we hop back into AM, FM, etc., you can see there all of your different options again. Settings here gives you some basics. So if the HD radio is available, you've got artwork available if it's on these stations. So if they broadcast all of that info, you'd be able to view it there. There are a series of different sound settings also, so you can adjust your bass and treble. So you can see here it's balanced out. What I've found is the treble down a bit, mid-range up, bass cranked by like 3 or 4. Something like this tends to give pretty good audio in my opinion. But that's going to be a matter of preference. So what I actually recommend is playing one of your favorite songs and then navigating through here until you find something that works perfectly for you. You can adjust it out. So do you want it to be driver focused? Do you want it to be rear focused? Do you want to do a little fade, balance, whatever the case may be? You can have it driver focused, front focused, full vehicle, which is kind of neat. Speed compensated volume. As you start to go faster or slower, it's automatically going to adjust the volume for you. And that's using media inside of the vehicle. Bluetooth audio. So if your phone was connected over Bluetooth, you'd be able to listen to audio this way. Smartphone connections. So if you had a phone connected, that would show up. Power flow is available in the hybrid versions of the ride. So you can see your current fuel economy, your current total vehicle range, how much juice you've got inside of the battery, and then you've got basics like which wheel is getting which amount of power. You'll be able to see the electric motor driving and recharging the battery as you drive as well. It's actually kind of neat the way that Honda's done this graphically. It's subtle, but it kind of looks cool at the same time. And then inside of the cluster screen, you'd have the flexibility of seeing that info as well. So if you hit the home icon, you can move up or down until you get to your power level. And then from there, you've got the same basic layout. So you've got the same look as you go. So on both the cluster screen and on the infotainment. If you didn't have a hybrid, that wouldn't be available. You've got SiriusXM available, so that just launches you right in. From here, you've got a series of different general settings, so some basic system info, where you can adjust the date and time. So adjust the date and time, I normally recommend to keep it automatic. You can turn automatic off, which then unlocks the flexibility to actually be able to adjust this yourself. But because when we're in auto mode, it's going to gray these things out. Time zone, I normally recommend keeping that in auto mode as well. The only time you're going to want to adjust it this way is if you live somewhere close to a time zone and it constantly flips you back and forward from one to the other. So you can permanently lock out whatever time zone that you'd like. Daylight savings times available. Do you want your date format to look? So month, day, year, etc. You can adjust out your language. So do you want to be in either English, Spanish, or French? And that's going to be either for the center display here or for the cluster screen. So you can adjust it out as necessary. Back out, touchscreen sensitivity. Do you want it to be more sensitive? Yay or nay? You can adjust some system volumes, which is kind of cool. So your text-to-speech, navigation, and phone calls, you can have all of these set to a unique volume if you'd like to. Do you want to share data? Yay or nay? Nothing exciting there. Factory data reset is kind of neat. So if the screen's giving you issues or if you're selling your vehicle, you could just do a full data reset in order to bring it back to your factory default instead. Then there's some basic detail info. Smartphone connection, which we've already seen. So Apple CarPlay, Android Auto if your phone is connected. Different connection options. So Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So are you connected over Wi-Fi or your Bluetooth connections? Do you want to connect a new device? Display options where you can adjust the brightness of the screen. You want it brighter, darker, etc. You can also adjust the contrast level, the black levels. There's a display mode down here as well, which I'll show you in a sec, or bring it back to the default instead. Different sound settings. So we've already seen this one. So adjusting your treble, mid-range, bass. You can adjust the camera, your rear camera specifically for your guidelines. So do you want those on or off? And the guidelines are these little guys. And then there's the dynamic guidelines as well. So as you go to rotate the wheel, you'll see those dynamic guidelines. So whether or not those ones show up are a matter of preference. Cross traffic monitor. If you start to back up and somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, you'll get a little notification letting you know. For voice control, there's either assist or normal. Assist is going to essentially be a more step-by-step process, so you get a lot more notifications. Think of that one more like an advanced mode for your normal. That's the basics of your general settings. You've got a series of vehicle settings too. So driver assistance setup, you've got a boatload of different options for safety. Forward collision warning, if there's potentially going to be a collision, you can get a notification. You've got options for your road departure, so as you start to veer over into another lane, that's based off of having this setting turned on. It's a very useful one. And when it's enabled, you'll notice that it goes green inside of the cluster screen, but it's going to keep you nice and balanced in your lane as you go. Blind spot system's a neat one as well. So you can get either an audible alert or you can get a visual alert. So both of them. And what that means is that if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, it's going to highlight in the side view mirror, letting you know that someone's entered that blind spot. The driver attention warning, if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that to take a break. So you'll either get a little bit of a tactile alert, an audible alert, tactile, which is just going to be that shake, or nothing's going to happen. So you can at least toggle that one off if you want to. Rear sensor, so that beeping that you get as you back up, you can toggle that one off if you don't like it. Meter setup is going to be for the cluster screen, so you can adjust some basics there. So you can manually reset your trip A counter. You can have it reset when the ignition's turned off or when you fully fuel the vehicle up. Fuel efficiency, turn-by-turn display. So if you've got factory navigation inside of your vehicle, you'll also get turn-by-turn directions inside of that cluster screen there as you drive. Let's see, speed distance units. So do you want to be in either kilometers an hour or miles? And you can see there, it updates everything nice and simply. So it's going to update the speed there. Obviously, because we're a Canadian spec vehicle, you'll always be in your kilometers an hour there, but your digital speed will at least be changed out. And that's the same thing with your total trip counter along the very bottom. So whether you're in miles or kilometers. Rear seat reminder, so when you go to turn the vehicle off, it can give you a heads up letting you know that there is potentially something in the back seat, but you can toggle that off. Easy entry exit's kind of a neat one. So with that one turned on, when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to lower the seat and back it up for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. I'm not a fan of that one, but if you are, you can keep that one enabled. Key access gives you a few different options. So when you go to unlock the doors, is it strictly the driver's door that becomes unlocked, or is it all doors? You can press again for all doors to become unlocked though. Key access, so flash. So when you go to unlock the vehicle, do you get a flash there? Do you get a beep? Remote start, do you want to toggle that on or off so you can't remote start from the fob? And then there's lockout protection. From here, there's basics for lighting setups. Interior dimming lights, when do you want your interior lights to turn off? When do you want your headlamps to turn off? So when you go to lock the vehicle, do they just turn off right away? Do they stay on for 15 seconds? So up to 60 seconds total. And then, nothing exciting there. Door setup, when do you want the doors to automatically lock or unlock? So as you start to drive, when you shift from park, or do you never want them to automatically lock? When do you want the doors to automatically unlock? Walk-away lock is also a really cool one. So if you've forgotten to lock your vehicle, you start walking away, it'll automatically lock the doors for you. Let's see, keyless lock. Do you want to get feedback as you go to lock the vehicle? And then remote window control is such a neat one. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how a few of these different options work. If you do a double push on the unlock button, so you're going to go 1, 2, hold. Watch this. You can release deposit part way or push and hold again. Look at that. And not only do all 4 windows open up, but so does the sunroof if you've got it available. So that one's pretty cool. From here, different options, power tailgate setup. So you've got your hands-free access, yay or nay, your power open using the handle on the outside. Do you want to be able to have it power open, or do you want it to be manual instead? Power, I think, is the way to go, but I do like that there's a keyless open there as well. Predictive eco, and then maintenance information, so just basic info. So if you're changing oil out yourself, you could reset that data. You've got your trip counters, so you've got your trip A versus trip B, and then current. So current is from when the vehicle was last turned on. That's your total fuel economy that you've gotten. You've got your trip A versus trip B counter. It's kind of neat because you can see what kind of economy you've gotten. I'm curious what, okay, yeah, so they didn't drive far with terrible fuel economy there. But the economy overall inside of this ride's been pretty good. And then you can hop back in here to reset those options too. USB if you were connected, AM, system updates, if there were any updates that were available would show up here. There's a Wi-Fi hotspot, your clock, so if you wanted to adjust out your clock, you could. Date and time, you can hop in this way. You could change the clock face. So you've got some pretty wonky and wild designs, but if you wanted it a little bit more subtle, you'd have that flexibility. From there, you've got Honda Link, smart shortcuts for different options along the bottom, and then your display mode in order to be able to adjust the screen brightness, or you can toggle the display off and then just button push in order to get back to the screen again. So straightforward. And then if you're ever running into any issues inside of your vehicle, things like CarPlay's not connecting properly, you're running into any navigation issues or other issues, you don't have to do a full factory reboot. In order to do a soft reset, you've got to hit the home icon along with the power button and then the left seek button as well. So the back button, you're just going to press and hold that for a few seconds. You got that little boop, and then you've got a few options here. So self-diagnostic mode, no, we've got detailed info and settings. So you've got a bunch of different options here, but we're not there yet. So you've got different options for your basic data. But if we now hit back, power, and then the back button there again, so we're going to hit all 3 for a few seconds. There we go. You've got your Wi-Fi mode setting. You can do a system reboot and things like that. So we're just going to do a system reboot, and it'll take a second in order to actually reboot the screen. But this is where you're going to go, and that's how you're going to do it if you're running into basic issues. Like I said, CarPlay issues, if navigation's not working, other system settings aren't working properly, you're just going to do a basic soft reboot there, and it'll take a few seconds to load up, but you'll see the Honda logo pop up, and we know that we're good to go. This takes a few seconds in, but that's how you reboot the infotainment system, doing a soft reboot without having to remove any of your previous saved settings and any of your previously connected phones and things like that. You can see there a few seconds in, and we are set to go. It's really neat. There's the option for heated first row seats, no ventilated, but you've got dual zone climate control. basic climate control settings there with a USB and a USB Type-C power point. This one's plugged in to USB because I want you to listen to some audio. So there are 4 different speaker choices available inside of the CR-V. There's a 4-speaker, 6-speaker, 8-speaker, or 12-speaker Bose audio system. So this one is the upgraded Bose system, and it sounds amazing. So you can go through, look at this, so many options inside of this ride. So we'll go USB stick to listen to audio that way. You can browse through to see what songs are available. And the audio that we're listening to here, it's just coming out of my microphone, so there's no post-processing done whatsoever. The audio inside of this ride is so good. Okay, let's go through this one here, a little bit more of like a rock rap type of a song.
Good impression on your boss. Don't do anything that I would. Tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that can make sense. They hate.
The audio inside of this ride is so good. So good. Honestly, like, it's the 12-speaker system, which does make a difference. The 8-speaker is okay. The 4 and the 6 are, I think they'll be okay for most people. But if you're an audiophile where you love your audio, you're going to want to go for the upgraded system. You've got a wireless charge pad inside of this ride, a series of selectable drive modes. So there is a sport mode, which is going to... So this is an ECVT transmission, so there are no set gears. But in the sport mode, what it's going to do is it's going to change up the shift points. So it might shift at a higher RPM, which means that it's going to give you a sportier performance. And then you've also got the option for economy or a snow mode. So that's going to play with your traction stability control, specifically for the wintertime driving. But now you've got a lot of options here. There's an electronic parking brake. Brake hold is an interesting one. So with this one turned on, if you're in drive, you come down to a stop, take your foot off the brake, the car's not going to move. There are a few cup holders there. A good amount of storage inside of this with a removable tray. No power points in there, so it's just storage. You've got that same little highlight that you saw along the door following through the dash. Little honeycomb design here. I'm not too crazy about the design of this. I would probably 3M wrap it over certain spots, but it's kind of unique, a little different. There's a glove box, it's fully lockable. Good amount of space. The visibility inside of the ride is also pretty good. Overhead, there's an auto-dimming rearview mirror that you can turn off. Basic controls for your cabin lights. There's also the option for a little sunroof. So it's not full panoramic, but still kind of nice that's available. Single button press opens it up the full way. So it's pretty solid. Just opens things up nicely. I think when it's there, when it's closed, you can also push up if you wanted to create a little breeze instead. From there, there's a sunglasses holder. Overhead here, we don't have any sort of a ticket receipt holder on the outside or on the inside, but there's a vanity mirror that has a light built in. And this, oh yeah, there we go. Extends out to block all of the sun that might be hitting your face. There is a good amount of space inside the ride. I like that there's seat memory. And with the seat as far back as it's going to go, what's that? 3.5? I'd call that a solid 3.5 inches of headspace. So not a ton of space, but I mean, if you're 6'4", 6'5", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this ride. And then you can easily reset your seat if you'd like. Second row, you've got that same little highlight we saw along the first row door. There's the option for second row heated seats, and that's heated on the outboard seat. So that middle seat would never be heated. It's basic window control with some door storage. Ooh, and space-wise back here. With the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of foot space, knee space, head space. I've got actually 2.5, almost 3 inches of space here. Not bad. And then one thing, got that little lever along the top there. So this little guy, in order to fold the seat down, but you can also give it a solid recline. Ooh, it's good. And then space-wise, I'd actually probably say maybe have the same 3, maybe 4 inches of space, depending on how you sit. So if you're 6'4", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of the second row. of the CR-V. And feature-wise back here, there are actually quite a few things. So I mentioned the outboard heated seats. There are some cup holders built right into the seat there as well. You've got a little map pocket behind the second row. Passenger side, there's a little handle. On the passenger, the driver has a handle and a hook. Then there's an overhead light. Moving down low, you've got your HVAC controls, along with some USB power points. These are the thermoplastic rubber trays for the second row. And then for seatbelts, so you've got your outboard seatbelts there. This one is going to be for the middle seat. So there's this like little seatbelt that you kind of push in first, and then you just wrap around. But I'm not gonna lie, the middle seat, I should say, in the second row, I could fit, which is surprising, but it's not really a comfortable seat. Like I've maybe got an inch of headspace there, but the seat cushion it's kind of brutal. It's like the forgotten seat for every manufacturer. But you can always put kids back here if you wanted to, but getting 3 full-size adults that are my size, it would be a little bit tight. Not impossible, just tight. But either way, you've got anchor points there with your top tethers in behind the seats if you need them. Take a look at the en route handling here. Here we go. All right. That's pretty good. Acceleration on it's pretty good. Getting up to highway speed here. No complaints. Overall road noise, it's a little noisy. It's not bad though, like it's definitely doable. And you could always just blast the audio system if you wanted to drown out any sort of road noise, but it's not bad. You're gonna find the CR-V front wheel drive standard and then all-wheel drive optional in the US, but all-wheel drive is pretty much the only choice in Canada. No complaints though, because the handling that you get inside of the ride is actually pretty good. Super responsive, which is nice. It's a crossover, sits up a little bit higher. So you do have to take that into account, especially if you're going to do some evasive maneuvers. But even looking at the overall turning radius inside of the ride, not bad. And then back up to speed. It's a nimble little bugger. I'll give it that for sure. And that was everything you needed to know about the Honda CR-V. You can find a build link for this car down in the description with links off to Honda Canada and US. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care. If you're the type of driver where you don't gun it as you go to take off, you will get really good economy inside of this ride. Oh, for sakes. If you're the type of person that likes to go on some adventures, there's the option for crossbars, so you can do some roof rack rails with If you're the type of persons